Hey guys, welcome to after a bit of a delay, and we'll talk about why the latest episode of Tell Me a Little Bit More About Your Sneakers. This is going to be a little bit different episode. It's a personal stuff. It's the title of the episode is I Got COVID. It wasn't mild, but I'm here. And it's gonna be personal. It's gonna be raw. It's gonna be messy. It's gonna be vulgar at times. But I think it's something that I've been wanting to do, to talk about, to kind of help really talk about what I went through. What is happening, what is still happening, and what we can do kind of going forward. So I think already if you've been following me or seeing who I am or know who I am, or if you're just some random person watching the episodes, which I appreciate, you know a little bit enough about me that I'm a medical doctor. I'm a physician, and not just some random bum physician. I'm triple board certified, meaning that there's been 3 separate boards of medicine which feel that I'm good enough to be a card-carrying diplomat of them. I'm expert in psychiatry, child adolescent psychiatry, and addiction medicine. It's hard because I'm still struggling with it. But I'll give you a little bit of a timeline of what happened and what happened to me. We'll kind of go from there. So I'm saying this is a kind of also saying that this isn't some kind of flex or something like that. This is me acknowledging the amount of privilege that I've had and received during my illness and my treatment. Everything I've done to avoid being in this situation, but it's still taking me down. And just again, if you've been watching me, I'm hardly, I'm gasping for breath at times, and I'm breathing heavily still. And this is 3 weeks later. I have a bit of a sweat, and it's not because I'm nervous or warm. It's just because it's taking a lot out of me to do it. Again, a little bit about me, just health wise. Prior to all this, I'm 30. I turned 38 just a couple months ago. I'm healthy. I don't have any underlying medical conditions. I think I'm relatively a strong person. I have like a home gym. I'm blessed to have a home gym. Again, one of the things that I can acknowledge is one of my privileges. I have that ability to stay home and avoid that and do home gym stuff. And while I hadn't been doing particularly strength training or like really powerlifting stuff in a while, on my 38th birthday, I just kind of, for myself, with a bum shoulder, a little bit, strained shoulder, and like a little bit of a tight knee, I was able to, between my deadlift, squat, and bench, put up over 800 something pounds. So I'm a strong person, right? In that regards. And again, privilege-wise, work-wise, I'm a psychiatrist. I work primarily in an outpatient setting. I don't have to see patients face-to-face. I was seeing them over video, like I'm talking to you for the most part. So I know I wasn't exposed through one of my patients. I have some patients that do come to my office, but we were masked up. We kept distancing. I know who my exposure source is. I'm not going to name who they are. And what I would say is that the exposure source, I brought up concerns about just spacing wise, someone work, and I wasn't fully addressed either by the organization, and also just myself. I just kind of was like, this is what we're going to do. So over the course of some months, some hours together, our space together, even though while we were masked and did everything, our space together was, some feet away, less than 6 feet. So I take responsibility for that. I can take responsibility for that. So a bit of a timeline of how things kind of went down is, the person would come in some days per week for a few hours per week. And the Thursday, the week before Thanksgiving, was the last time I saw the person. And we went home, everybody was fine. And then Saturday morning, I got a text on Monday morning from the person saying, hey, I woke up, and this is on the 23rd is when I get the text. The 23rd of November, the week of Thanksgiving, is when I get a text that from the person that I woke up on Saturday 21st. This person saying this on Saturday the 21st, feeling sick when I got a test, and I turned out to be positive. So there's a 48-hour gap occurred between when symptoms from the person and their test occurred, and that knowledge passed along to me. So the 19th was my last physical exposure to that person. 23rd is when I'm notified that they've become positive. And then I kind of freak out a little bit because I'm like, oh, great. Let's just see what happens. I'm feeling fine at that point. 24th is Tuesday. And that's the evening that I started to feel something was off. Again, it was my sister-in-law's birthday. I was concerned of a potential exposure. I declined going to the event, but I was like, let me stay home and let me just kind of like work out at nighttime. I have a punching bag at home. I tried to hit the punching bag and there was just nothing behind my energy, or there was no energy behind my punches. I felt gassed and I was like, this is not right. This isn't me. I felt like the punching bag was hitting me more than me hitting the bag itself. And ultimately I was like, something's wrong. Took a shower and I just felt feverish and I said, something's wrong. Wednesday 25th, I called out of work. I said, hey, I'm not feeling good. I can't do this today. I'm feverish. I started my quarantine that evening. I started kind of like a modified quarantine on Monday night. When that initial exposure, I was like, hey, let me just sleep over here. Tuesday night, I was like, let me just move into the basement, away from my wife and my kids. And by Wednesday night, I was like, something's off. Called into the hospital where I work. We arranged a virtual visit with the respiratory clinic. I had a visit, the nurse practitioner, when describing what happened, kind of laughed at me and said, like, it sounds like you have COVID, ha ha ha. I'm not fucking amused, right? So I went, got a test. I was able to get a drive-through test that evening. Buckled down at night, starting to feel more feverish, and I was like, something's going on. Thursday, Thanksgiving, obviously out the window. I feel awful because my wife and my in-laws, my wife is a nurse. She took it responsibly and she declined to engage with her in-laws or with my in-laws or her family for Thanksgiving, and it was upsetting, but she did the right thing, and the kids and everything like that. So we stayed at home. I stayed in the basement, and I noticed that like my mint toothpaste when I was brushing my teeth just felt not right. Coke I was drinking, I think some Diet Coke Zero, didn't taste like anything. I was like, I know what it is. Starting to have trouble sleeping. Friday overnight, I think, was the first time I ever had a panic attack in my life. I was alternating between fevers and chills. I felt like my toes were frozen. But I was paralyzed and unable to kind of get up to get socks, but at the same time unable to get up and just go to the bathroom. And I was just sweating through my bed sheet and my blanket. And it was the first time I ever had like I'm saying, a panic attack in my life. It was terrifying. And I, finally at one point I had to get up because my feet were just frozen. And I looked and I had fully sweat through the bed sheet that was on the inflatable mattress. I'd sweat through the top layer of the mattress itself. The blanket that was on top of me just soaked through. It's scary. I never had anything like that before in my life. I was able to get socks. I felt a little bit better, but still terrified. And around like 2 or 3 in the morning, I get like the alert, hey, you've tested positive. The medical record system sent me a notification. You've tested positive for COVID. So I was like, here we are. So that is Friday, the 27th of November, right after Thanksgiving. This is still a sneaker podcast. So I was able to wake up that morning because I had gotten a call from Team Member Health being like, hey, you tested positive. You tested positive? Yeah, you can't come back to work for a little bit. And I was like, okay, cool. And they're like, if you die, let us know. Or if you have to go to the hospital, let us know. And I was kind of like, again, not fucking amused. But they called me early enough to let me know that, hey, you got this. So, despite all this, I was able to cop a pair of kicks. The big Black Friday release of the Jordan 4s that came out. So the Jordan 4 OG Reds, these are original 1989 re-release that came out. So despite all this, despite me being in like a delirium and a panic attack and all that stuff, I was able to cop these, thankfully. So it's not a total loss of all the situation. And I mean, just real quick, we'll talk about this. You can't go wrong with this, man. 1989 Jordan 4s. This is like a must-have, and of all the things. But one thing I'm thankful for, I was still able to cop that. So got something out of it. But anyways, that's Friday. And then Friday, I'm just hanging out. I'm like, you know what? We're just gonna ride this out. Thankfully, things have been mild so far. But over the weekend is when things started to take a turn. And I started to notice that I was having a lot more trouble with breathing, and a lot more problems with that. Things like I would notice so when my kids and my wife would go to sleep at night, and I would go upstairs to grab a snack from the pantry or something, and I would walk up the stairs, and I would just be gasping for breath. I couldn't function. And I was coughing, and there were times that I was coughing up blood, blood streaked sputum. And it's terrifying when you cough up blood. And again, a reminder, right? I'm a relatively strong guy. I can sprint up a couple of those type of stairs, no problem. But here I'm going up one flight of stairs, and I almost have to turn back around because I can't make it up. I can't go to the bathroom. I'm gasping for breath. I can't function. Any kind of exertion is causing me to just buckle down and breathe and just stop what I'm doing. And that was kind of going on. I made it through the weekend. Football was helpful, but even just when I was laying on my ass and on the couch and just watching football, I was gasping for breath. And it's terrifying. So it's around Monday the 30th when I'm starting to be like, hey, this is trouble. Monday Night Football, I think I was watching, it was the Seahawks and the Eagles, Carson Wentz losing his starting job. And I was like, this is trouble, right? This isn't right. And I was starting to get more and more concerned. I reached out to a buddy of mine on Tuesday, the next day, and just being like, hey, I'm concerned. And even my people at work, and I was like, what can I do? And I reached out to Team Member Health, and at 4:45, I think on Tuesday, and they were closed, and they said, hey, they weren't helpful. So I couldn't do anything with them. And I was going back and forth. Do I go to the emergency room? Do I see what I do? And I took some Cepacol, and it helped a little bit. It opened me up. I was able to kind of slow my breathing down, at least to get to the point that I was able to sit down and just function a bit. But I couldn't sleep that night. And I woke up the next morning, and I was again in the same position. I was gasping for breath, and ultimately decided on Wednesday, December 2nd, to go to urgent care respiratory clinic and get checked out. So my wife, and in the meantime of all this, the other terrible thing about this is I exposed my wife to this, right? And she tested positive. And, luckily for her case was extremely mild, but still I got her sick. And I don't know about the kids. Luckily the kids from this whole thing have been healthy and safe, but the hardest thing about it, right, is the quarantine aspect. Is when my daughter's 5 years old. I've slept with, put her to sleep at night since she's been like 1.5, 2 years old. And when she sees that, like, Baba is sick and she's upset and she wants to give me a hug, and I can't give her a hug back. It's hard. And that was the hardest thing about the whole thing. Looking back on it is not being able to hug my loved ones when I was sick and they wanted to hug me and they trying to grasp it. But and I got my wife sick. And it sucks. And the second comes around, my wife, she's exposed, she's sick, she's able to drive me to the emergency room or to urgent care. I talked to them on the phone. They said within 5 seconds of talking to me on the phone, they said, "You're going to be going to the emergency room." We went in there real fast. We went into then they said, "Just go to the emergency room." Luckily we went into the emergency room. I had to wait there for a little bit. I was seen, and it was one of those moments that shows you how small sometimes the world of medicine is. The emergency room doctor was actually somebody who I did a rotation with when I was in med school at St. Agnes Hospital in the surgery rotation. And there are some rotations where you have a shared trauma, and that was definitely 12 weeks of a shared trauma that we all had in our little cohort, our group over there. And as soon as he walked in, he said, "Hey, you're not," and I was like, "I'm Dr. Spinagle, I remember you, Chris, again, thank you." But as soon as he walked in and I saw the face and we knew where we had come from, it brought such a sense of relief to me to have that person there. And again, this is privilege again, right? Because I worked with this guy when he was a med student, when we were both med students, when we were both coming up, when we were busting our ass to get rotations so that we could be in a position where we're at right now. And I knew him and he knew me, and we connect on Facebook very sporadically, Twitter, whatever, all that stuff. But it's like just that recognition, just that familiarity, which millions of people did not have, that I was able to have by being in the hospital system and just having that label, knowing these connections. But I'm in the emergency room, right? And I'm struggling to breathe. I'm breathing 30, 40 times a minute, which is double, triple what you're supposed to be doing. And gasping for breath and sick, and I'm just a mess. And you get hooked up to these machines. This is the first time I've been hospitalized in my life. I've had anything like this happen to me in my life before. You're hooked up all this stuff. You're getting poked and you're getting prodded. I'm still having bruises from you can see it like on my hands and stuff where I was poked and prodded. I still have the holes in my elbows, my antecubital fossas, right, where I had the IVs and everything like that. I still have the adhesive on my chest and on my arm where it hasn't scrubbed off yet. And just moments like having the oxygen in your face and just having the oxygen, just so you can breathe. Having 40 liters of oxygen pumped to you just so you can breathe. And I was in there, I got a dose of azithromycin, an antibiotic, dose of ceftriaxone. I got a dose of steroids started, not the steroids I would like to have had. Right? I lost 15 something pounds during this whole ordeal. Lost so much strength. Not the steroids I wanted to get, but some steroids I got over there. And this started me on I was lucky again privileged enough to be able to get started on remdesivir, a investigational antiviral drug right in the emergency room. and they knew I was being admitted right away. I was admitted to a critical care unit. I get transferred up to the floor, and it's during this whole process that you become really humbled. I being changed, and this is an embarrassing thing to say, but I'm going to say it, is like I soiled myself and I didn't even realize it. And I'm getting wiped by some nurses and just being like, oh man, like, hey, you soiled yourself. And it's just like, and the nurses, the nurses saved my lives. The doctors saved my lives over there, and I'm thankful them for forever. And it's again, a humbling experience to just be like, hey, I'm the person who has the ability to do a lot of things and so many other things, and I shit my pants, right? And somebody's wiping that up for me. It's not a proud moment in my life, but it's something that happened, right? It's something that I'm gonna have forever, right? So I ended up being hospitalized overnight on the 2nd, and I didn't get out until the 8th. I was in the critical care unit for a couple of days. I was able to I was able to get the remdesivir, 5 days of that. All right, so that was on the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and the 6th, right? 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, I think it was. So 5 doses of that. I got the dexamethasone. And also during that, they gave me convalescent COVID-19 plasma, an experimental kind of, 2 transfusions of that, where it's the antibodies, apparently, of people who've had COVID, and some of their antibodies that they've been able to, in the plasma, donate, and they give it to people. And there's, investigational research that it can be helpful. The British Medical Journal recently came out and said there's no evidence that it works, but I got 2 transfusions of that. Over time, I was able to get transferred down to a more regular floor after a couple of days, and I was able to get weaned off the oxygen extremely slowly over a few days, and then start getting my appetite back, start eating a bit more, getting some sort of strength back. Sleep was terrible. Everyone and their mother, literally my patients' mothers, were messaging me when I was telling them, hey, I can't see somebody, I can't see you around because this is what's happening, that sleep on your belly. I've never been a belly sleeper. I can't sleep on my belly. I can't sleep on my belly with like something connected to my nose and things coming out my arms and all this stuff all over me. I can't sleep in general like that. I still am having trouble sleeping with it. So, but the nurses pushed, they did all the things they needed to do. And luckily, like by December 8th is when I was in a position, I was off of oxygen finally for 24 hours. My fevers had stopped. I was able to kind of just breathe room air, and I was able to go to the bathroom by myself, go to wherever I needed to go, walk around a bit, and able to go home. And I was able to luckily go home on the 2nd or the 8th of December. And it was hard, right? Because I went home and I didn't know what to expect. And you don't realize how much strength and stamina you lose with something like this. Again, I can see in my camera right now, I'm glistening. And again, it's just the work that is taking me to just talk about it. It's taking a lot out of me. So I came home and I was a mess, right? I had 2 weeks of like a bush growing on my face. Just to give you an example of what I physically was capable of doing, I tried to clean up my beard and just trim it a little bit and make it look somewhat presentable on Wednesday, after I took a shower, and I was wiped. I had to go in and pick up some medication and drop it off in my other office for my private practice, and it took a lot out of me to do that. couldn't do that. Luckily, my assistants, Jenny, Monica, have been fantastic, and they've been able to help support me during this time, and I'm forever in their debt because they've been able to keep things going for me on my end from that point of view. So it's been extremely helpful. And that's one of the things that, reflecting on this whole experience, has been the number one thing which I kind of stress and say, and with this privilege and aspect of everything, is that I had so much support. I was blessed to have the amount of support I have. I am blessed. And so many people who gave me well wishes, to the point that I had to tell people, I was like, listen, please don't send us food. Please don't send us anything, because we have too much now. And I was getting exhausted from replying to text messages. I know it sounds selfish, right? I was getting so much support that I was just worn out from trying to respond to everybody, which is a blessing. And I know that I had VIP service at the hospital because I was a doctor who was employed by the healthcare system. And the nurses would sometimes call me Dr. Mirza, and I would tell them, please don't, I'm not Dr. Mirza today. But it would still be there. And I really applaud my nurse, one of my nurses at the end, the last couple of days, Miss Karina, who really pushed me and called me Mr. Mirza. And it really was the one who was like, you don't need your oxygen today. We're gonna get you off this, we're gonna get you out of here. Because she treated me like a patient, and she treated me the way I needed to be treated, to be pushed. And I appreciate that. And, my family was there, my in-laws were so supportive. So my plea to everybody is this, right? This COVID shit is real. It kills people. It put me on my ass. But I'm blessed, I'm lucky enough, I'm privileged enough to walk out of the hospital, not walk out, but roll out the hospital and be home again with my family and be working towards a recovery. Other people are not. I had support every step of the way. I had, again, we had a family friend, Dr. Ali Shan Naqvi, who was watching over me. He's an emergency room doctor as well, watching over me and making sure I'm being taken care of. Dr. Rizwana Zaidi, who was the hospitalist who was in charge of my care, watching over and making sure I was doing okay. And all those nurses, right? All the people who knew I was, all the connections I had at work were able to kind of pull some strings to make sure that I was gonna get out of there. Other people don't. Thousands of people don't. Millions of people don't. And we're seeing that, right? So this COVID shit is real. Masks are not enough. Clearly masks are not enough. Social distancing is a real thing, right? Do your part. Protect yourself. This is serious. Be careful. Wait a few more months. It's not worth Instagram pictures. It's not worth your Snapchat pictures. It's not worth the baby showers. It's not worth the weddings. It's not worth going to the tea shops. It's not worth all this other stuff, right? If people are going to end up in the ground. If people are going to end up in the hospital. So I'm fighting to kind of get back to where I was. It's going to take a while. I know it's going to take a while. And I wish everyone who's watching this, thank you. I mean, if you've stuck through for this 30 minutes, thank you. And I appreciate it. Please take care of yourself. And then, my last kind of parting message is, this is, I have the opportunity, I have again this privilege to run a charity, run a scholarship fund. So I want to help seniors who are going off to college in the next year in the DMV area. So you can donate or submit an application. So it's laukaupsych.com. I'll have a link in the description /scholarship or scholarship at laukaupsych.com. for submissions, and essentially just talking about mental health awareness, COVID, etc. Anything that you want to, if you're submitting for an application for the scholarship, or if you want to make a donation to the fund. Last year was our first year doing it. We gave over $5,000 away to somebody, Miss Destiny, who's off at college right now, and we want to keep this going forever because we want to keep our future and our generations going in the future. So please consider donating. Stay safe, stay protected, and thanks for watching.